What's up, everybody? Caleb North here with the Figure Annuity Sales podcast. And today I'm going to talk to you about enhancements to your business. I'm going to talk to you about things that are credibility builders. Credibility builders. How do you actually build credibility with clients? And of course, one of the first things that comes to mind is expertise. Actually knowing what the heck you're talking about is a pretty good way to start. And I don't mean that sarcastically. I mean that very seriously, because sometimes it's easy to go out there and try and take all the action in the world. And if you don't know what you're doing or why you're doing it or the problems you're solving, it's going to make it a little bit challenging to do that the right way and to do it effectively. So first, yes, absolutely be an expert. But there are some key pieces that you can have, things that you can build, things you can have other people build that go to enhance the credibility of who you are in the space that you're in. And I've got a list. There's like 9 different things here that I'm going to go through and talk to you about today. And now some of these you might already have, but I would encourage you to listen through to the list because you probably don't have all of these going on. And if you do, well, props to you. Reach out to me. I'll figure out a way to give you some kind of prize or reward or something if you've got all 9 of these currently present. But the first one is professional branding. And guys, you've heard us talk about this before. It's not a new topic of conversation. And this idea of having a professional brand. Now it's kind of predicated on either having an LLC of sorts, or a corporation, some kind of legal business entity, or a DBA, right? You're not going to probably create a legitimate brand around you as just an independent producer, an individual producer. So I would encourage the consideration of actually building an LLC, at the very least, if you want to go all the way to, some kind of, and a lot of times it's just LLC, but it's an S Corp status. If you want to go all the way to, INC incorporation, I don't know why you would want to go to C Corp, but you can structure it however you and your tax advisor decide it's best to do it. But generally speaking, that's going to be LLC. If you're going to do that, build a brand for it. Have a logo created. Have the entire brand palette made, the cohesive fonts, the colors, all of that to bring cohesion across all of the digital interaction that they have with it, right? Because once you have the brand created, then it makes it easier to go into all of these other things that we're going to talk about. Second thing is a website, right? Well, if you don't have a professional brand done, it's going to be really hard to build a website that's actually cohesive. So having the brand kind of predicates building a website, but you want to have a website. You want people to be able to find you. If they search for you and they can't find you, do you think they're going to trust that you actually do what you say you do? And statistically, it's like 3/4 of people will research a business or an individual before they ever choose to do business with them. So if you're buying random leads that don't know who you are, and you're telling them your name and your company over the phone, and you're booking an appointment, and then they can't find you on the internet, good luck keeping those appointments. You probably have a high cancel rate of your appointments or just no-shows. But if they can verify that you are who you say you are, that's going to increase your stickiness of your appointments. So professional branding, website. Number 3, an email domain. Now, this is tied to the domain of your website. So if I were northfinancial.com, my email would probably be caleb@northfinancial.com. It just makes it easy. It makes it simple. It's professional. It's not, Caleb3000 at Yahoo or Gmail, Hotmail. It's the professional domain. Use the professional domain. That's 3 things so far. And I would bet that you probably don't have all 3 of these. Professional branding, website, and your email domain that's actually tied to your site. And it's better when that email domain is actually the domain of the website itself. Then we're going to get into social medias. And this is where you can use the domain again. So if you're going to have an Instagram, make it at whatever your domain is. In my case, I just gave the example of Caleb at northfinancial.com. Well, if I were going to have an Instagram, I would want my Instagram handle to be at northfinancial. So you're trying to keep cohesion across the board. Facebook, North Financial. It's always going to be the same name. You're going to have continuity across all of these outlets. But if you don't have social media, build a LinkedIn, build a Facebook. I don't think Instagram personally is as impactful right now, but it pairs really well with Facebook because they're both owned by Meta. So consider that. TikTok, YouTube, all that kind of stuff, that's cool too. But primarily Facebook and LinkedIn is where you're gonna want to camp out. Then you're going to want to do a Google business profile. Again, if you have a business, register it with Google. Make Google know who you are, where you are, what you're doing. Build a Google business profile, because these are all things that you can set up literally today if you wanted to. That's the fifth thing. So we've got professional branding, we've got website, we've got email domain, social media, Google business profile. And then here's another one. If you have a physical office location, make sure that Google Maps and Apple Maps knows where that location is and the name of the company that's at that location. So it should be, in my case, North Financial, if that's what I'm using. But I want to make sure that it's visible on the maps. I want to make sure that it's visible on Google Maps. I want to make sure that it's visible on Apple Maps. Okay, that's if you have a physical location. If you don't have a physical location, that's going to make it a little bit difficult to do that. I do believe you have to have a physical location of sorts for the Google business profile. So you might have to, there's ways that you can kind of buy use of an address that you maybe don't physically work from, but you can use that address so that you don't have to use your personal address. A lot of times, whatever company you're using to register your entity for, your LLC, whatever, a lot of times they'll give you the option to leverage one of their addresses as your business address. So just check into that, but you're going to probably have to have some kind of physical location for the Google business profile. But then certainly if you already have an office, make sure that it's on the maps. Now, here's where it starts getting into, I think, a little bit more work involved. It's going to probably require a little bit more research on your part. It's probably going to require a little bit more time spent to actually do these. But one thing you can do is actually be an author in featured articles. So, Forbes, different media outlets that have publications, you can actually go to them and present your credentials and write an article that they'll publish. And this is a lot of times where you'll see people using the as seen on. If you can get on a broadcast, that's even better, to talk about what you do and kind of the niche that you're in or the way that it impacts retirees, things like that. But you want to be able to leverage the credibility that other companies already have to benefit yours. Okay? If you're on an island and people can't equate your credibility to other things that they already know and trust, it's going to be an uphill battle to build the credibility that you want to build. It's going to take more time. But if you can actually pull on the credibility that other companies like Forbes, for example, has, then you can build that credibility way more quickly. Things like that go fantastically in an email signature. Again, when we talk about a professional email domain, with your branding, you also want to have a professional email signature. I recommend having a headshot in there. The more personable you can make it, the better. You want them to feel like they're working with a human being. Put your headshot in there, have your logo, have your contact info, and then, some basic credentials that help build up your credibility. But you can do those featured articles. The next one is actually publishing a book. This is awesome. If you can take the time to actually write a book, and then publish it, that would be a huge, huge, huge credibility builder, because then you can literally deliver that to every person you meet with, whether it's in person or it's online. If it's digital, you're meeting with them, virtually, you should be able to give them an ebook or something like that, or mail them a copy of the physical. But the point is, being able to say that you're a published author in this space instant credibility builder, because if you don't know what you're talking about, well, I was going to say, if you don't know what you're talking about, then you're probably not a published author. But let's be honest, there's plenty of published works out there that are silly at best. But it definitely creates the perception that you know what you're doing. It creates that credibility in their mind. And then the last one is some kind of talking head, whether it's radio, whether it's a podcast, something like that, where you're actually speaking on the topic of concern, right? The subject, you are presenting yourself as a subject matter expert to people, that they can go and find that regardless of whether or not they're working for you. So it can actually, or working with you. So it can actually be a good lead generator, but simultaneously, it's also a fantastic credibility builder to be able to say, oh, I'm on the radio. Oh, I'm a host of XYZ podcast, things like that. And it builds content. If you're recording things, it builds content for you to post on your social medias. So you can see how all of these things kind of work together to build a brand that is inherently more credible than the guy down the street. You have to be able to compete with some of the big dogs. And some of the big dogs have advisors. When you talk about Fidelity, Schwab, all these different places, Fisher, they've got advisors that get to leverage the credibility that their entity that they work for has created. That individual advisor may not be as good as you. That individual advisor might not be as smart as you. They may not know what they're doing with retirees as well as you do. But to the client, they do, because they're pulling on the credibility of the company they work for. You don't have that liberty. You're an independent, you're an individual, you're an entrepreneur, you're building your own thing. So you have to be able to build that up in a way that over time, the credibility is so stinking strong. All of those things are things you can start working on today. I'm going to go through them one more time in case you want to take a quick note, but it's have professional branding, logo, email signature, things like that, colors, consistent fonts. You're going to want to have a website is number 2. Number 3 is an email domain that's at whatever your company's name is. You want to have social media, again, named after your company. You want to have a Google business profile. Okay, you want Google to know who you are, where you are. If you have an office, make sure that that physical location is visible on Google Maps and Apple Maps, both. You're going to want to write featured articles in publications like Forbes or other media outlets that would allow you to write articles. Just start looking at what are the ones that you like, right? Start with the ones that you actually engage with. If you're Fox, look into, okay, what's Fox's financial publication that I can try and maybe get connected with. MSNBC, ABC, whatever it is, it doesn't matter. And it doesn't have to be a broadcast either, just any type of publication. Forbes, like I mentioned. Okay. Number 8 is publish a book. Start working on a book. If you're not working on one, start working on one. It doesn't hurt. I'm working on one that's completely unrelated to this industry, and I know it takes a lot of time. I can attest to that. Chad's written several. It takes time, but it's worth it. It pays dividends in the end because of the credibility that it builds. And then lastly, have a podcast or be on the radio or something like that where you can be a talking head, subject matter expert that actually produces content for you to repurpose on your social media. So again, all of these work together. Now, does it mean that you can't have success if you don't have all of these? Absolutely not. You can absolutely have success even if you don't have all of these. All I'm saying is that it goes to increase your success, and it goes to make the success a little bit easier to obtain. You have fewer client objections, fewer client rejections when you're presented to them as a competent, capable, credible individual that is an expert in this area that they need help with. If you choose to just disregard this kind of thing and you want to just be whatever your name is at yahoo.com, working as an independent salesperson for the insurance company that you're representing, you can go and you can probably pay the bills doing that if you had to. But it's going to be really hard to build and scale a business that way. If you want to get into the upper tiers of production, you have to start thinking like the guys that are. You have to start thinking like a Chad. You have to start thinking like a Jesse, in the sense that it's a business, not a little side gig. They're building a business. And when you have the business owner mentality, it changes the way you choose to spend your time and the way you choose to spend your resources. There's a lot of agents out there that would look at this and go, oh, that's going to take too much time. Oh, that's going to cost too much money. Great. They can go be an independent producer, an individual producer, and write $1 million or $2 million a year and pay the bills. Maybe that's all they want to do. But if you want to go and you want to be a 5, an 8, a 10, a 15, 20, 30, $40 million producer, it's going to take establishing yourself in these ways, building these kinds of credibility builders. So this is actually a relatively normal length one today, but I hope that that helps you. I hope that that inspires you to take some kind of action in one of these ways. And I guarantee you that the more of these you have, the higher conversions you'll have as well. When you're talking to people on the phone, now, again, it's not necessarily going to make it easier for if you're buying leads. It's not going to make your answer rate, the contact rate, higher, because they still don't know who you are. But once they know who you are, all of these things will go to help you close more business, convert more along the way at every stage. You book more appointments, you'll keep more appointments, you'll close more deals, you'll have higher average case size because of these things. And then, because these things are in place, you'll actually be able to start self-generating leads, which is something that Jesse trains on at great length in Retirement Realized Agents Academy. So if you're not in there, get plugged into that as well. So again, I hope this helps you. And as we always say, happy selling.